you are good to go.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is LaVon McLam, and I am the TA president of Williamsburg Houses. I would like to let you know a little about myself. My family's been here for generations. My grandmother and grandfather have been here since the 50s. They raised 11 kids here.
Wow.
Half of us are still here.
11 kids.
Yes.
Wow.
So, half of my family, they're still here. I have 2 small babies of my own that I am now raising here. So I would like to let y'all know a little about Williamsburg. Williamsburg is a very loving community of hardworking people. We are like every other housing complex that's in the city, except that we rely on government funds to help us get things done here. So I would like to say, did the government do its job? No. Do we deserve for the government to do their job? Yes. Do we want to keep our kids safe? Yes. So we have a lot of issues here that I'm happy to partner with de Blasio trying to get the job done. I know it's a long road. You know, nothing's done overnight, but to get it started is a very good thing. And I'm happy to introduce the mayor, Mr. de Blasio. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, LaVon. And LaVon, you have been president of the Resident Association for 2 years, you said?
Yes, going
2
on
years.
2 years, but I've been a vice president for 4.
Okay, so I want to thank you because part of what we need to do to make lives better for 400,000 New Yorkers who live in Nycha housing is to listen to the voices of active resident leaders helping us to figure out what will work and what we can do. And LaVon, I want to thank you for taking the lead, stepping up, and being part of a family. I said to you earlier, it's like a wonderful New York success story to have generations grow up in public housing and succeed. And I really appreciate your leadership. Let's thank LaVon for everything she's doing. And LaVon, we are going to work together to right the wrongs of the past. And we're going to start right here. And you're going to see the difference it makes with the latest technology to be able to really figure out what has happened in the past and how we address it today. And for the first time ever, we're going to be able to say with absolute certainty whether an apartment has lead paint in it or not. Something that's never been possible or never been acted on the same way previously in this city's history. Now we're going to know once and for all, and that's going to change everything. So here at Williamsburg Houses, we just did the first public demonstration of this new testing approach. For everyone who saw it, it's straightforward, it's easy, it's quick. Literally, the technology allows the inspectors to see through all the layers of paint over the generations since the building was built and know once and for all if there is lead present. What does that mean? It means we're going to be able to disqualify a number of apartments and say once and for all, we know they don't have lead, and that means we can put all of our energy into the apartments that do have lead and fixing that situation. It means there's going to be a lot more peace of mind for residents who know that their apartment not only doesn't have lead, it never did have lead. This is going to revolutionize the approach, and it's going to allow us to use the resources we have in a much better, faster way. So this is the definition of leaving no stone unturned. We're literally going to go to every apartment where there's an open question, and that's 135,000 apartments. Nothing's ever been done on this scale before. And we're going to get the final clear answer for each and every one of them and then act from there to make them safer. I want to thank everyone who is here as part of this, all the residents who have joined us. I hear from our Nycha chair in a moment, but I first want to acknowledge and thank the members of my administration who are here. I want to thank for his extraordinary efforts the general manager of Nycha, Vito Mastacholo, has done an amazing job. Thank you, Vito, for your effort. You looked like you were really into that XRF technology. You became an expert already. And a special thanks also, Health Department has been a key ally and partners work. Thanks to Assistant Commissioner Chris D'Andrea of the Department of Health. Thank you. And again, to all the Nycha employees who are here, who work every day to make this development great. Let's thank all the Nycha employees. Give them a round of applause, everybody. And of course, to the residents and the community leaders who are here, thank you, everybody. Thank you for all you do. So, as we talk about what's beginning today, and this really is a historic day, we're starting this comprehensive testing for the first time in the history of New York City. But it's a good day to look back and remember that New York City's been in the forefront over generations in the battle against lead. You go back over 50 years, 1960, in fact, lead paint banned here in New York City back in 1960, 18 years before the federal government did it. 2004, the law was passed. I was proud to be a co-sponsor of Local Law 1 in 2004 when I was in the City Council, and it forced landlords to identify and remove and address lead issues. Because New York City's been in the vanguard, we've seen something extraordinary since the passage of Local Law 1 in 2004. We've seen a 90% reduction in the number of kids under 6 years old with elevated lead levels. And that is extraordinary progress, but we've made very clear that the goal we're shooting for is zero. We're taking a Vision Zero approach here. Our goal is to eradicate lead paint poisoning once and for all in the city, and to do it quickly. Our attitude is clear. We don't want to see any child suffer. We don't want to see any family suffer. We want to take this issue, like some of the diseases of the past that were eradicated, we want to take the challenge of lead exposure and eradicate it once and for all in New York City. What you're seeing today is a really extraordinary new piece of the equation, because we have this technology that now will allow us to understand what couldn't be understood the same way before. So starting today, we will go to all 135,000 Nycha apartments where there is still the possibility of lead being present, and we will find out once and for all the truth. The goal at this moment is to complete all of this testing, all 135,000 apartments, by the end of next year. And this X-ray technology will allow us to move very quickly. As those of you who saw the demonstration with Vito and his colleagues understand that this is something that can be done very efficiently. The goals we're setting now are to screen 5,000 to 7,000 apartments per month. And again, one of the things we're going to do, I mentioned this previously to Vito, is we're going to come up with some kind of a symbol, some kind of decal or whatever it might be, to make very clear once an apartment has been screened and there is no lead present whatsoever, to make clear that everyone knows that that is an apartment that is lead-free and will always be lead-free. Once we do, in any case, find lead, and again, our hope is we're going to find a lot of lead-free apartments, but when we do find lead, especially in the case of an apartment with a child under 6, we're going to move very quickly. Our teams know that if they find lead and if there's a child under 6, they have to immediately act to address the problem, immediately bring the health department into play to work with the family. This is something that everyone understands is an urgent protocol. And so this tremendous attention that's being paid to public housing is going to allow us to identify wherever the problem is and act immediately. But it's important to note the extraordinary report that Kathryn Garcia put together on how we eradicate lead once and for all. It's really, anyone who hasn't read it should read it, because it's something that was done in 90 days by her and her team, and it's outstanding, aggressive, forward-looking work of how to get things done. That report points out the larger truth we all have to remember. 97% of kids in this city with elevated lead levels live in private homes and apartments, not in Nycha housing. So what we learned in the course of dealing with this challenge is we're going to have to go a lot farther to reach those kids. I want to thank the City Council, which has been right there with us, passed a series of very important new laws, and there's more to come, so that we can go after those challenges in private housing more aggressively than ever before. We're going to do whatever it takes. And we are going to address this issue, and we are going to eradicate lead. I don't have a doubt in my mind. And we're going to be the city that proves it can be done. A few words in Spanish. Seguimos trabajando por la salud y seguridad de las familias de Nycha y para erradicar el plomo en los edificios de la autoridad. Vamos a realizar pruebas en cada vivienda de Nycha donde pueda haber plomo. Así mejoramos la salud pública y seguimos avanzando en nuestro plan para que Nueva York sea la ciudad grande más justa del país. Well, this is a battle, and every battle needs a great general. And in this case, the great general is Kathryn Garcia. As I said, what she did in putting together a comprehensive plan was nothing short of extraordinary. And that plan is part of what helped us to recognize what we could do and how we could turn things around here in Nycha and beyond. And I also want to say it was the audacity of Kathryn and her plan and the audacity of Vito in recognizing that even though it is a huge endeavor and a costly endeavor, the XRF testing would revolutionize our approach. So these two together have done something that no one else has done before. And it's my honor to introduce Nycha Acting Chair Kathryn Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. I really want to thank the mayor for his work on this important issue. He and I worked very closely together, creating Lead-Free NYC, the city's roadmap to eliminate childhood lead exposure in New York City. And Nycha is an extraordinarily important part of that, given that it is home to 1 in 15 New Yorkers. We were actually chatting this morning, reminiscing about being up very late at Gracie Mansion, going through very detailed lead policy documents to ensure that we have the best plan moving forward. Last July, the mayor did announce this is a first-of-its-kind plan to fully test Nycha for lead-based paint, so that we will no longer have to presume and we can focus our resources on where the actual threat exists. This $88 million undertaking will test 135,000 Nycha apartments citywide by the end of next year. We'll be testing all apartments where lead has not been ruled out, and we are also, of course, prioritizing developments with a high population of children under 6. Today, we begin testing at Harlem River houses using this technology. We will begin here at Williamsburg houses on May 1st. You've all just seen a demonstration of how the XRF technology works. It can literally see through layers of paint and determine once and for all if there is any lead. For the first time in Nycha's history, we will definitively know which apartments have lead and which do not. Each apartment that tests positive for lead-based paint will be remediated so that we are one step closer to lead-free. We are committed to going above and beyond with these inspections. XRF testing is not required under any current local, state, or federal laws. We are the only landlord in the country doing this. Following Harlem River and Williamsburg, the next development scheduled to receive XRF testing are Red Hook Houses West in Brooklyn, Bronx River, Castle Hill, and Marble Hill houses in the Bronx, and St. Nicholas and Johnson houses in Manhattan. The plan is, as you know, to test between 5,000 and 7,000 apartments a month, going apartment by apartment until the issue is fixed. We also will be posting the results of the inspections on our website every month. In addition to this, the residents will get a copy of their personal results so that they have them. While we are going into the apartments and doing the XRF testing, we will also be doing our visuals that were required under HUD for 2019 to check for any peeling or flaking paint, as well as making sure that we look at other issues that might be happening in the apartment so that we can create work orders and get them fixed. Today, we begin the aggressive work to make sure that we are charting a new course to eliminate lead from our residents' home. This is a first step toward a lead-free Nycha and part of our mission to provide residents with safe homes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathryn. And we are today in the district of a council member who has been very focused, very aggressive on the needs of his residents, particularly his residents, his constituents who live in public housing. And I have to say, having watched the work of Antonio Reynoso, that his approach is activist, and I use that in the very best sense of the word, shining a light on issues, coming up with constructive solutions, pushing them through to resolution. So it's a pleasure to introduce Councilmember Antonio Reynoso.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank all the residents behind me in Lavon for all the work that you do in advocating for the folks that live in Williamsburg houses and live in housing developments across the district. I'm very happy here today to see Commissioner Kathryn Garcia, that we know as the sanitation chair, who I know of her work. And when you decided to put her in as the head of LEAD and then as the head of Nycha, I knew the work was going to get done. You did a very good job at being able to find the talent within the administration that can get this job done. And I always say progress is not justice. And we need to get to zero. And I feel confident in the leadership that is currently in Nycha, alongside Vito Masterchulo and the work that he did in HPD. It's clear that this is going to get done. And I feel better being able to meet the residents in my district and tell them that we have a plan and that it is going to get done. So I want to thank Mayor de Blasio for coming here today so that we can now move forward and announce to especially Williamsburg houses that by May 1st, they're going to start going to every single apartment and they're going to test it. I'm glad that there's technology that lets us do this in a meaningful way. The other way was necessarily slow, I would call it. This way, we know that we can get it done quickly and effectively. So again, thank you, Mayor de Blasio, for continuing to focus and getting us to zero when it comes to lead in these apartments. And again, just want to thank you for the work you did in identifying leadership within your administration that can actually get this done. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. And finally, I want you to hear from an assembly member who is not only a representative of a community here in Brooklyn, but is Assistant Speaker for the New York State Assembly, and in that leadership role has helped to set the agenda in Albany, including focus on affordable housing and the needs of public housing residents. So my pleasure to introduce an old friend, Assembly Member Felix Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm very concerned about when you say all.
A friend of long standing. A friend of long standing.
Let me just really thank you very much for bringing us together, and specifically about this technology. When I got the phone call about coming to the press conference, I said, what is this technology all about? So I researched and I Googled it, and believe me, Google worked. And I will say to you that not only you should be proud, but my constituents and the constituents and the people of the city of New York who live in these developments, they should be very proud that you have come with a concept and a technology that really will detect whether or not the lead is instantly in place. And I also would like to thank Vito. I have worked with Vito for many years, and you have a wonderful team under your belt. And to the acting chair, you do have a great team under you. I will tell you that I'm very proud to hear the 90 days that you put this report together and to address this, because this issue at the end of the day is about one thing and one thing only, is to make sure that our children and our family are lead-free. Our children and our family are lead-free, and they can go to school, they can get educated, and they can move forward. With that, I would like to thank you again. Thank to all the workers that spend a lot of time in the Nycha's developments for their work and their sacrifice. And I will continue to looking forward to working with you, Mr. Mayor, and the new acting chair to push Albany to make sure that we are doing what is right for the people that deserve it the best and bring justice to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assembly Member. So let's take questions from the media on this announcement and other NYCHA-related matters, and then we'll go to other topics. Yes?
So the City Health Department already has XRF machines. They have about 25 of them. So how is it different, this plan, that they're paying an $88 million contract to test them versus what the City Health Department is already doing?
Kathryn, Vito?
Certainly. So you are absolutely correct. The Health Department, as well as HPD, does use similar technology, but that is usually triggered by the fact that a child already has an elevated blood lead level. So this is about being in front of the issue and determining where the threat may be. and also making sure that we are doing all of our inventory. While I'm sure that the health department and others do a lot of work, they're not doing 135,000 apartments. And so we are using vendors to go out there and make sure that everything is done according to the EPA standards and that we have clear documentation for each apartment.
Okay, Monica.
Mayor, we're live on Facebook. There's a theme of the questions that are being asked about what took so long, and why is it taking so long to get this kind of zero, you said, tolerance to lead. Juicy D on Twitter asked, what the hell is taking so long to correct this big problem that's been going on for years?
So, as I said, there's a big challenge here, but I also want to give everyone in New York City who's worked on this issue over the last 2 decades some credit where credit is due. Since Local Law 1 was passed in 2004, we've seen a 90% reduction in the number of kids who were exposed to lead. That's very important. But this technology and understanding that we could use this technology on a vast scale to get this answer, that's really something that only became clear to us in the last year. And the willingness to spend $88 million to get it done is something we were willing to do. I'm not sure people in the past were willing to make that kind of commitment, but we are. So the bottom line is this will be the ultimate test. We'll know once and for all which apartments have it, which don't. And for the first time in this city or any city, we have a plan to get to zero, to ensure there will be no children exposed to lead. It took, by the end of next year, all the XRF testing of all 135,000 apartments in Nycha will happen. The overall lead plan to get to zero is over more years than that because it's going to take going to all the private housing too. Because it's a very difficult endeavor. And we've made really clear to people, and we should have you review Kathryn's report, and Kathryn can speak to it. This is a city with 1 million buildings in it. This is a massive undertaking to eradicate lead exposure. No city's ever done it, but we're going to do it.
So absolutely. So we project that will take approximately 10 years. Paint is by far the most common source of exposure. It is not the only source of exposure. You can also be exposed through consumer products, specifically powders or spices. So there are a lot of different elements, and so we didn't want to overpromise. But we have consistently seen the number of children with elevated blood lead levels go down year over year. And as we move forward, if there is more that we need to do or there are more things that we can think of that would be useful, we will work collaboratively with our colleagues at the Health Department to identify those.
Melissa.
Mr. Mayor or Commissioner Garcia, if lead is detected underneath undisturbed layers of paint by the XRF technology, what's the remediation plan? Because my understanding, I went through some of this in my own apartment, is that it's a bigger risk to disturb lead paint that's underneath a surface that's intact because you're essentially, if you're removing it, you're creating lead dust where there wasn't any before. So what will happen if there's an apartment where it's intact but XRF shows there's lead under the surface?
So our intention, I'll put it this way, it will depend on which surface it is on. For certain types of removal, it would not be disturbing. For example, if it's just on the baseboard. And our intention is to try and do that within 90 days if it's a relatively straightforward work. If it is intact and it would be a bigger capital project, then we would design that to go into a capital project, as long as it is not a hazard. If it is a hazard now, we will immediately go in and repair the hazard. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
And you have to do like that reverse technology. You can't just like disturb lead dust when you have people living there.
No, there are extraordinarily strict rules for when you are dealing with any presumed lead-based paint that we have trained Nycha staff on. Which include things like ensuring that plastic is put up to protect the residents during any work that is done, and very specific requirements for cleaning after it is completed. I don't know if you had anything to add, Vito.
No, well, I would just say that in addition to the contract for the XRF testing, we will also be awarding a contract for lead abatement. So again, we do have a plan moving forward, and it's going to be based on the results of the XRF testing. Whether it's intact, whether it's peeling, whether there's a child under 6.
Peeling or chipping?
It may be intact today, but we are looking towards the future as well. So our plan is, as the mayor indicated, is to make Nycha lead-free. So in time, we will also address positive lead-based paint that's intact.
Courtney.
With the XRF testing, when were you required to do it before? Was it just when a child had an elevated blood level?
So this is the point. I'm going to hold it up for everyone, but this is not required. That's the point. This is something that is brand new. We are doing this of our own volition, not because federal law or city law or state law requires us to do it. And again, I want people to understand, we're spending $88 million to do this because we think it's the right thing to do. We think it's right to go the extra mile to protect residents of public housing, particularly kids. So this is something, I remember the day Vito, to his credit, walked in and said, there's a way we could do something that's never been done before. It's going to cost a huge amount of money, but it could make a big difference. And I said, what do you got? And he said, there is a technology that could tell us once and for all. The last time there was an effort to try to delineate which apartments had a lead versus which didn't was in the Giuliani administration. It was, we now know, a very cursory effort. It wasn't particularly accurate. It wasn't particularly complete. It's kind of like a sampling and a modeling, but not a real apartment by apartment search. So this is the once and for all answer. And we need to understand that. This is something that no city has done this across the board on this level to literally get to a Vision Zero approach. This is about eradication.
It was only used for the elevated blood level, the ones we have now, right? Just to double check.
So it was used when HPD also does it for when they have complaints. They will use the XRF machine as well.
And we also use it to be in compliance with Local Law 1 when there's a vacant unit, so on the turnover provision. So we are testing those apartments right now. Again, as the mayor indicated, though, this goes beyond the requirements of both the federal government, the state, and local.
Go ahead, Anna.
I think you said this already, but it's within 90 days is the idea. If it is tested positive, you'd want to remediate within 90 days, or?
Well, it would depend. If there's a child under the age of 6, and if it tested positive, and the paint is not intact. So again, there are different plans of action depending on the occupancy of the unit, depending on the findings, and depending on the paint condition.
Do you guys have any idea as of now how much the remediation will cost, or is that still very much up in the air?
Now, we really need to start getting the results and being able to figure out exactly what the work requirements are going to be. We have done some modeling of it, but we really did not have confidence in putting those numbers out. So we want to start to have some really precise information, and then we will be able to do better projections.
But what you will see every month is the numbers moving. So, we talked about a projection of 5,000 to 7,000 inspections a month. A certain number of those are going to come back with apartments that don't have lead and no longer will ever have to be inspected for lead. So when you think about all the personnel that are being applied to this, the technology, the money, for the first time we're going to be able to say, here is a substantial number of apartments that don't need this focus anymore, so we can take all of that focus and put it on other apartments, and that's going to speed things up. Nolan?
Are we going to get monthly tallies in terms of like disclosing the information?
Yes, we're going to put it on the website.
To that point, under the federal settlement that you guys signed, you're supposed to have 5,800 apartments that have peeling paint suspected of having lead repaired. Last I heard, there were still 200 or 300 apartments that still needed fixes. What's the holdup? It's been that number for a month or two now.
So no, we have been aggressively going in, but as you would anticipate, as we get towards the last bucket of people that we have to get into their apartments, there are more challenges getting into those apartments. So we are pursuing administrative ways to get into the apartments as we had before, but there can be issues with there's a dog, or there is an adult home, or the tenant isn't home. So these are been the most challenging to get through. But we continue to work on both visuals as well as remediations going forward.
You guys started drilling the locks in these 200 to 300 apartments?
So we are not doing drill outs for paint jobs. We are doing drill outs for when we have to do inspections, because when we have to do actual work within the apartment and move people's furniture, we really want to have them there. So we are using other tools to get in.
Who hasn't gone? Rich?
So how many personnel are involved in this? How many teams, how many vendors, and how long does it take to inspect a typical apartment? And saying we want to come in and inspect, or how does it work?
So we awarded 9 contracts to 7 vendors. Right? Combined, we should be fielding approximately 75 staff each day. These are vendor staff. They will perform approximately 4 inspections per day, which brings us to about 6,000 inspections a month. Right? We are providing our residents with notification, written notice, 2 weeks in advance of us coming out to a development, 1 week in advance, and then we're making phone calls 48 hours in advance. Right? So we're providing ample notification. We are informing our residents that when we're out there, if they're not home, we will use our right of entry. Okay, so when we're in the development to do the testing, we will make every effort to get into the apartment to conduct the testing.
And it takes, what, several hours to do
So
that?
it takes approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the size of the unit and depending on how much furniture there is, occupancy.
Courtney?
I don't know if Commissioner or Interim Chair said this, or Vito said this. You had said lead-free Nycha 10 years, the monitors...
No, lead-free everything 10 years. Yeah, that's do we have the report here, communications friends? We should be distributing it to everyone in the media because the plan that Kathryn put together is to eradicate all lead exposure in New York City for children, period, 0. But it's for everywhere. Remember, 97% of it is not in Nycha. It's in private housing, which is in many ways much harder to address because we don't own it. But the goal, and we believe it can be done, is to, we've gone 90% of the way already since 2005. We want to finish it once and for all, and this is something that's a part of the past and not heard of anymore.
The monitors agreement says abate Nycha of all lead apartments.
2 different concepts. Yeah. 2 different concepts. This is, so this, a great question, but let me help you. I'm starting, the experts can be more expert. We want no child exposed. We want the actual result in human terms. I'm saying this as a parent. We want a day to come in this city where not a single child is exposed to lead anymore, ever. That is different from the question, is there lead somewhere in the building? But if there's lead somewhere in the building and kids are not being exposed, we still want to go and get at it, and certainly the federal government shares that goal. But our goal is the more human one, the more functional one. We want to make sure no child is exposed, and we think at the rate we're going, we can achieve that. Yeah?
135,000 apartments is more than half of all the apartments in Nycha.
Yes.
What about apartments now that do not face the qualifications to be tested, but a couple of months from now, a mother with 2 small children may move into one of those apartments that hasn't been tested at all? How will you...
Are you saying at 135,000 or the other remaining? Right. So let's talk. That's a great question. Let's talk about both of you, grand total apartments you have, and why some have already been resolved one way or another.
Sure. So today we are reporting approximately 173,000 apartments. There are a number of apartments that were built after 1978, right, which are not required to be tested. Right, because again, as the mayor indicated, the federal government outlawed the use of lead-based paint in 1978. In New York City, it was 1960. So those units do not have to be tested. In addition to which, there are approximately 23 or 24,000 apartments that we have previously tested and have either done abatement work or the tests were negative, so we can rule those apartments out. When we finish these 135,000, every single apartment will have either been tested or were built after 1978.
Okay, Monica.
Criminal charges. People have sick children right now. There are hundreds of lead-poisoned children in our city right now. They want to see criminal charges. They want to see Nycha higher-ups held responsible. What do you say to that?
I'm going to say, first of all, the folks who knew that the inspections weren't happening and did not tell the Nycha higher-ups, I think did something horrible. I will leave it to the U.S. Attorney to determine what's the appropriate course of action. But again, as I said, the people who knew and did not tell the leadership of Nycha said this many times. Some people knew they're no longer working for Nycha. They did not tell what they knew, And that is the origin of this particular challenge we're addressing right here. But we'll leave it to the U.S. Attorney. No, we'll leave it to the U.S. Attorney to determine what's the right course of action. Go ahead, Courtney.
On a Nycha topic, somewhat a little bit off topic, but still on Nycha, it's been reported that Saul Ramirez Jr. is in the running, or the top candidate potentially, to be the new chair of the Housing Authority. Can you address that report? Is that true? Have you met with him? Have you
So, as I told you guys before, there's been a very intensive effort. Literally every day there's conversations going on with HUD in Washington and with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Dozens of candidates have been looked at. Some have been interviewed. Some have been interviewed repeatedly. Not going to go into, as with any other personnel process, I'm not going to go into the details of that. But there is tremendous unity between the federal government and the city in getting to the right choice for leadership. And we all decided we wanted to do this in a very systematic manner. And I feel very good about the process. Go ahead. No.
On that question, do you think it's essential that the next chair of NYCHA have previous experience running a housing authority?
I think the answer is the most important thing from my point of view is the ability to lead in this dynamic. This is a turnaround situation. It takes a particular leader to be able to do that. I don't think the only candidates who are strong are the ones who have specifically led housing authorities. No, I think you look at more than just that. I think it's great if there is that experience, but I think in the end, this is the equivalent of being mayor of a major American city when you think about all the responsibilities of a NYCHA chair. So we're going to look at folks, and we have been looking at folks with a wide range of different backgrounds.
The May 16th deadline?
I feel good right now. I think everyone's been working hard. There's been a lot of great names. I think we're on track. Okay, last call, NYCHA. Going once. Okay, we're going to off-topic. Dave. Oh, wait, I want to say something before off-topic. My apology. We have had a very good, smooth, positive transfer of power in our city press office. I want to welcome Freddie Goldstein in her role as our press secretary. Welcome aboard. Friday to Monday, and better dressed than Eric Phillips by far. You know, don't look for Eric Phillips in the next edition of GQ. That's all I want to say. Okay, Dave.
Oh, yikes.
Dave.
Mayor, I know you've said several times in the past that you would let us know when there's an update on any kind of presidential.
Yes.
Check on that, but I just wanted to see your reaction from the news this weekend with Pete Buttigieg and his announcement, whether you watched it, read about it, and also is there any kind of perhaps irritation on your part that he has gotten so much good press and so much publicity and so many donations, and South Bend is what, 150,000?
You know, I don't, this has been true throughout my work in the political world, I don't fixate on other people. I just don't think it's productive. I got a lot to do here, and like I said, this is ultimately a very personal decision, a family decision. So no, I do not spend time worrying about other folks. I really don't. When I have one, you will know for sure. Go ahead.
Last month, stats came out about bus fare evaders. We know the pilot program started last week with the NYPD, small amount of officers going on buses, but drivers are still really afraid to confront these fare evaders. What are you doing about this? It's a huge chunk of money the city is losing. Well,
it's a real issue. Now, first of all, obviously the buses are run by the MTA, so I just want to make clear we don't run the buses. It's not our immediate responsibility, but we care about it a lot. And I care about making sure that the MTA can run. That we just all went to a huge effort to finally get legislation passed in Albany to fix our subways and buses once and for all. A really important moment, very positive moment. But this issue of fare evasion has to be taken very seriously. And I certainly don't want to see bus drivers put in a situation that creates any kind of problem or danger for them. Now, we don't have the best information on exactly what is going on with this challenge. I've asked the NYPD to do their own assessment to understand from an enforcement point of view what they need to do to be most effective. We are starting a pilot, as you indicated. You're going to see more police presence on buses. You're also going to see more police presence in subways for other reasons. But in terms of truly understanding the problem and where it is particularly prevalent, NYPD will be doing its own analysis to get to that. Hey, just one second, I've forgotten acknowledgement, and I want to do it now on the whole question of Nycha and the work we're doing here in this community. I want to thank for his hard work and partnership, Rabbi David Niederman. Thank you very much. We've been working closely with you as well, and I know you are concerned deeply to make sure we get these health issues right for our children. So thank you very much, Rabbi. Is this now? Okay. Our seniors in the group, I understand you have an appointment for lunch. So, if anyone needs to go to lunch, this is a good time to do it. If you need to know, we'll hand out permission slips. It's okay. You won't be, no one will be offended. If you need to go, good time to do it. Otherwise, we'll take some more questions. All right.
Can I say it in Spanish?
Yes, please.
Si tienen que salir para comer, ya se pueden parar y salir para ir a su lonche. No se tienen que quedar aquí. Okay. Good job.
You're good. You're very effective.
Now let's go.
When Antonio speaks, everyone leaves the room.
That's not a good thing for my business.
Yeah. Antonio, what did you do?
They're ready now.
Okay.
1 o'clock. All right. I don't have a lunch break, but I'm also going to be going.
I won't be offended.
Let's go Nets.
Let's go Nets. Yes. Very impressive. Very impressive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very impressive. Okay, Anna.
The lawsuit against your measles vaccination mandate was filed today. Curious if you have any response to that, as well as the fact that, you know, the lawsuit in Rockland County, a judge pulled the halt on the emergency order. So I'm curious if you guys are looking at that lawsuit in your response, or, you know, what the status of that is.
We feel very confident about our legal position. When I announced it last Tuesday, I said that too. This is something the law department feels strongly about, that everything that's been done here fully within our legal rights, and obviously in the midst of a real health challenge. Yes, Willie.
The City Council is expected to vote this week on a bill that would reduce the amount of energy and carbon emitted by buildings. Where do you stand on that bill, and what was the role of City Hall and the administration in?
We worked very, very closely with the City Council over the last months. Intensive, detailed effort. I participated in a number of meetings. This has been, I think, extraordinary effort by the council. I want to give them a lot of credit, but we've been absolutely unified on this. And this legislation, I believe it will pass, and I look forward to signing it. It's going to revolutionize our ability to reduce emissions through our buildings, which are really our #1 problem here in New York City. It's very aggressive legislation, but I projected a while back that we were going to need to do something very aggressive, particularly because the federal government is not doing their role. So I feel very good about this and where it's led us. Yes?
Can you please expand on what you mean by NYPD assessment?
A little louder.
Can you expand on what NYPD assessment means of the fare evasion?
Sure. They're going to go do their own assessment of where the problem is, how extensive it is. For them to apply their resources, they can't just send cops everywhere. They have to figure out, you know, in the same vein as precision policing, CompStat, where are we seeing the problem and what measure? And that's going to help us figure out how to use our police resources best. So they're going to do their own independent look at what's going on and where it's going on.
On the buses, and would they?
Eventually, sure. I mean, we're starting a pilot, as I said, which is going to include police presence on the buses. But what we need to do is understand exactly what's going on with this problem and the best way to combat it. That's what the NYPD will study directly. Please.
The loss of 1,000 city bikes over the weekend cripples an expanding transit system. Does the city have any, will it take over at all if City Bike can't?
My understanding is that they were able to quickly replace a lot of those bikes. I mean, this is an unusual situation. We haven't seen a lot of this kind of problem with City Bike before. So, you know, I think in this case, unusual challenge. They addressed it quickly. They informed us quickly. They put replacements in place on a wide scale. So I don't think it has larger ramifications at this point. We're certainly going to look at it to see if there's anything more we need to know, but I don't draw a bigger conclusion at this point.
Blasio has been critical of your record on homelessness in the past. Were her comments taken into consideration when she was hired for?
I was not part of her hiring process. Kathryn and Vito made that choice, and I have great respect for both of them. And I'm sure they were looking for the professional they thought could do the job. It's a free country. People sometimes have criticism, especially depending on who they're working for. That's not unheard of. But from everything I've heard, she's a very experienced professional who can, do what we need in terms of getting the word out on what's happening at Nycha. Okay, Monica.
I forgot to ask about Mr. Martinez. He was a man that Ruben Diaz Jr. brought up last week for being evicted from his home. He was undergoing surgery, recovering, and there was a tweet from Olivia saying that Nycha management was out. Could you talk a little bit more about
that? When we heard about that, it was obviously unacceptable and had to be addressed. We didn't want to leave him in a situation where his future would be in doubt. So I reached out, and I know Kathryn and Vito wanted to fix the problem too. So why don't you talk about what you've done? No, to my colleagues here. Go ahead.
Right. So I spoke with Mr. Martinez and his caseworker on Friday. We had staff with him. We are showing him an apartment either today or tomorrow, depending on his availability. It's not in the same development. It's in a nearby development. And we are also going to purchase new furniture for Mr. Martinez. We're going to make him as comfortable as we possibly can in his new home.
Why does it have to go to this point? Why do you have to do stories on people who are hurting or actions being
Look, this is a horrible mistake. It should not have happened. I think it was a very unusual situation, but it should not have happened. In terms of, I want to thank Kathryn and Vito acting quickly to make him whole and get him into a good situation. But I think in the future, if we have any indication that something like this might happen, we have to make sure that it is stopped before it happens. Go ahead, Courtney.
Back to 2020, do you have any travel plans for this weekend?
Not for this weekend, but we will have more travel coming up, and we will alert you as soon as it is scheduled. Willie.
Could you give us an update on NiceWind, the wireless network? I understand it's not completely back. And are you going to fire the head of Do It?
Well, first of all, the issue before us is to get everything up and running fully. And I want to get the exact. So at this moment, as of this morning, it's 90% of the system is back to normal. It's going to take certainly several more days to get to the remaining to be 100%. So we'll give you an update in the course of a week on a final day and hour when we believe everything is 100% back to normal. That's job one. I've said very clearly there needs to be a very thorough, very objective review on why this happened. I don't understand why it happened. I don't think it's acceptable that it happened. I need to understand exactly what happened here, and then we'll make decisions from there. Go ahead.
Related to Nycha, tomorrow Councilman Mark Traeger is going to have a rally at a Nycha development in Coney Island, whose senior center has been closed since Hurricane Sandy. I wanted to see if you wanted to comment, and I'm curious why so many of these post-Sandy repairs have really just been done at a very slower glacial plate.
I would say a lot of post-Sandy repairs have been actually quite successful, so I don't agree with that characterization. But tell me exactly the location again.
To the Surfside houses in Coney Island, I think West
Can
24th.
either of you speak to that?
Certainly. So we have identified a provider, and we are waiting for them to sign the lease with us so that they can take over the facility.
Okay. Anna?
I'm just curious, with the measles outbreak, are you guys going to update the number of cases today?
Yes.
And when are you guys going to actually start fining people for this? Because the understanding that we've gotten from the health department was that you might never fine anyone because that's not the goal. So it's a little bit confusing.
No, it's a fair question. So later today you will get an update on the number of cases and I believe also on the number of violations that have been given and actions that have been taken. We said on Tuesday we don't want to have to fine people, but we will give the violation and proceed toward the fine for anyone who defies the order to get a vaccination because they're endangering other people. So everyone should be clear. Once you have a violation, it's a $1,000 violation. It can very easily be implemented, and you can have to pay $1,000. If folks heed the warning, they get a violation, but they quickly go and get the vaccination, and I remind everyone it's available in the neighborhood. It's available for whatever people can pay. It's even free if people can't afford it. They have insurance, they're covered. If someone quickly addresses the problem and resolves the problem, then we don't want them to have to pay. But if they ignore it and they refuse to get the vaccination, they're going to be paying $1,000. Go ahead.
Measles question as well. I've been hearing from some primary care providers that the number is actually like 3 to 5 times higher in terms of kids that have measles because they're staying at home. Are you addressing those concerns, or have heard from other providers that really is as?
It's a real concern, obviously. I'll let the health department speak to it specifically. We know that there can obviously be cases that we don't see, and they don't have a video camera in everyone's house. I understand that challenge. But what we do know, the last numbers I got last night were 3 hospitalizations at this point. Thank God that number is low. I do think the outreach has been extraordinary, and the cooperation from community leaders has been extraordinary. What we see right now is a very small number of anti-vaxxers who are creating a huge amount of danger for other people. And I'm saying this as a parent. There's no question that kids need to get vaccinated, and that if a child's not vaccinated, it could endanger them, it could endanger, as we said the other day, pregnant women, it could endanger folks going through chemotherapy. This is more than just about the opinion of any one family. This has much bigger ramifications for all of us. So we're going to look everywhere we can to understand where the problem is and how to address it. But I want to tell you, community leaders and organizations and institutions have stepped up across the board, and the word has clearly gotten out in Williamsburg, and a lot of people seem to be heeding the call. We'll have, again, you'll see some more later on today, but I think a lot of people are heeding the call. Please.
To change the subject, your administration is due to submit a pile of documents to the Comptroller's office today stemming from the $173 million deal to buy the building from the Podolskis. In sort of the aftermath of the coverage of the deal, there's been a lot of attention focused on your relationship and your administration's relationship with Frank Caron. There were a pile of emails that were published showing he was regularly recommending people for jobs. Do you feel like Frank Caron had undue influence in your administration, any undue access in your administration?
No. Go ahead.
A community board in Upper Manhattan recently rejected a straightforward safety proposal.
Just a little louder, please.
A community board in Upper Manhattan recently rejected a straightforward safety proposal a month after a woman was killed there.
I don't know which community board, which safety proposal. I'm not familiar. And what was the proposal?
Safety proposal, changes on Amsterdam Avenue. Often you've overruled community boards. Yeah. Is that something that you can commit to for Amsterdam?
I don't know this case, so we'll get back to you. The team will definitely get you an answer on that. I'm just not familiar with that. As you said, we make decisions on what we think is in the interest of people's safety, and we listen to community boards, but ultimately have to make the decision as the stewards of this city. But we'll come back to you on that one with the details. See if there's anything else off topic. Go ahead.
To you, what does sooner rather than later mean?
I admire your effort. Yeah, it's okay. You know what? As I said, it's just a personal decision. There's a lot of time on the clock here. We're going to make the decision when it's ready. So.
To sticking around for Inner Circle?
I actually have a very important appointment in Iowa that day. I can't be at Inner Circle. No. I'm looking forward to Inner Circle in all its glory. We have a very spontaneous approach to Inner Circle. It's kind of like improv for us.
Emails. It's not all spontaneous. We read those emails.
No, it's gotten more spontaneous over time. Put a lot of energy into the beginning. We said, let's try improv. Well, let the team update you when they have. Yeah, Freddie, we're not supposed to talk about Beyonce yet, right? Okay, thank you.
Kathryn Garcia in charge of that too.
Yeah. Very good. Touche. Thank you, everyone.